Right now as you watch this, there are cells inside your body that have stopped working the way they should. Cells that refuse to die, refuse to renew, and instead sit there quietly releasing a toxic chemical signal that spreads to every healthy tissue around them. Scientists have a name for them. They call them zombie cells. And the 3 foods I'm about to reveal to you are feeding those cells every single day, pulled straight from the shelves of your refrigerator, foods you almost certainly trust completely, foods you may have been eating for decades without a single warning from anyone. This is not a conversation about exotic chemicals or rare toxins. This is about what is already in your kitchen. And by the time this video is over, you will never look at those 3 shelves the same way again. Let me explain what is actually happening at the cellular level, because once you understand the mechanism, the danger of these 3 foods will be impossible to ignore. Every cell in your body has a built-in lifespan. It divides, it serves its function, and when it becomes too old or too damaged, it is supposed to self-destruct in a clean and orderly process so that a fresh, healthy cell can take its place. That cycle of renewal is what keeps your tissues young, your immune system sharp, and your organs functioning correctly. When it works the way it should, you feel it. Energy, clarity, resilience, the sense that your body is still working for you. But here is where the problem begins. When certain dietary compounds enter your bloodstream on a consistent basis, they disrupt that cycle at the cellular level. Instead of completing the process and clearing out, damaged cells enter a kind of frozen state. They are too compromised to function, but they do not die. They linger. And in that lingering state, they continuously release inflammatory proteins that act like a distress signal broadcast through your entire body. Your immune system receives that signal, interprets it as an ongoing threat, and keeps itself in a permanent state of low-grade activation. That state has a name: chronic systemic inflammation. And the scientific community has linked it directly to the development of abnormal cell proliferation, the biological condition that precedes tumor formation. This is not a theory. Research has consistently confirmed that the accumulation of these senescent or zombie cells is one of the primary drivers of the inflammatory environment in which abnormal cellular growth becomes possible. The more of them you have, the higher the biological signal, and the more hostile your internal environment becomes to healthy tissue. Now here is the part that will stay with you. The 3 foods I'm about to show you are not doing this damage through some rare or exotic mechanism. They are doing it in a way that is completely understood by science, completely documented, and almost completely ignored in mainstream health conversations. You have been told to worry about smoking. You have been told to worry about sun exposure. Nobody ever sat you down and explained what is happening inside your refrigerator door right now. And in a moment, I'm also going to tell you about something called the cellular hunger protocol, a specific sequence of 4 morning activators found in any ordinary kitchen that science has confirmed can trigger the body's own internal cleanup system, the very mechanism that hunts down those zombie cells and dismantles them from the inside. This protocol changes everything about how we approach cellular aging, and I want to make sure you stay with me through the end of this video, because what I reveal in the second half is the piece almost no one ever connects to the 3 foods we are about to discuss. But first, let me take you back to someone who came to see me not long ago. A woman in her early 70s, sharp, active, genuinely committed to her health. She walked every morning. She cooked almost every meal at home. She had cut out sugar years earlier and was proud of it. When she sat down across from me, she described a pattern that had been building for about 2 years. Fatigue that did not respond to sleep, joint stiffness in the mornings that lasted well into the afternoon, a persistent low-grade pain in her lower back that no physical therapy had touched, and then the results that had sent her to me: an inflammatory marker in her blood work at more than 3 times the expected range for her age. Her physician had told her it was simply aging. She had not accepted that answer, and she was right not to. I asked her to walk me through exactly what she ate in a typical week. Everything, including what she kept in her refrigerator. And within about 15 minutes, I saw the pattern clearly. She was doing almost everything right, and yet 3 specific items she trusted completely were systematically feeding the very inflammatory cascade that was driving every symptom she described. When I explained the mechanism to her, she said something I have never forgotten. She said, "I thought I was being careful. I had no idea that careful was not the same as safe." 3 months after removing those 3 foods and making one additional strategic change I will explain to you shortly, her inflammatory markers had dropped by nearly half. The morning stiffness was gone. The fatigue had shifted. She told me she felt like a different person. Her story is not unusual. I have seen it repeated in different forms more times than I can count, and that is exactly why I'm making this video. If any part of what I just described about this patient resonates with something you or someone close to you has been experiencing, the fatigue that does not respond to rest, the stiffness that has quietly become normal, the inflammation results that nobody could explain clearly, I want you to share that in the comments below. Tell me what you have been going through. I read every single one. The first food you should never store in your refrigerator, and this one surprises almost everyone, is processed deli meat. Cold cuts, packaged sliced meats, cured sausages, any meat product that has been preserved with nitrate or nitrite compounds. Now, you may think you already knew this was not the healthiest choice, but I want you to understand what is actually happening at the cellular level, because it is far more serious than most people realize. When nitrites combine with the proteins and heat of digestion, they form a class of compounds called nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are direct mutagens. That means they are capable of altering the genetic material inside your cells. They do not require a large dose to cause damage. They do not require years of industrial exposure. They are produced right inside your digestive tract every time you consume these meats, from the very first bite. And here's what makes this especially dangerous for anyone over 60. As you age, your body's DNA repair mechanisms become less efficient. The cellular machinery that would normally correct a small genetic error slows down. So the same compound that a younger body might manage with relative success becomes significantly more dangerous in an aging system where the repair crew is already working at reduced capacity. The science here is not subtle. Research across multiple large-scale international studies has consistently shown a direct association between regular processed meat consumption and elevated risk of colorectal, stomach, and pancreatic cell proliferation. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies processed meat in the highest category of carcinogenic risk to humans, the same category as tobacco and asbestos. And yet millions of people open their refrigerators every single morning and eat these products as a routine part of breakfast. The second food is one that almost nobody ever names, and this is the one that genuinely shocks people in my practice. Commercial bottled salad dressings and sauces, the kind that sit in almost every refrigerator door in this country: ranch, Caesar, Thousand Island, bottled marinara, teriyaki, the full-flavored ones that make cooking faster and easier. I understand the appeal completely, but here is what is inside those bottles that the label does not make obvious. The base of nearly every one of these products is a refined industrial seed oil: soybean oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, corn oil. These oils go through an intensive chemical extraction process that involves high heat, chemical solvents, and bleaching. By the time the oil reaches the bottle, it is already partially oxidized. That means the fatty acid chains have been chemically altered and are in a state of molecular instability. When you consume them, those oxidized lipids integrate directly into your cell membranes. Your cells are literally built with structurally compromised materials. And what happens to a cell built with damaged materials? Its membrane becomes less stable, less selective, and far more vulnerable to the kind of inflammatory signals that trigger senescence, the zombie cell state. But the problem does not stop there. Most of these bottled products also contain high fructose corn syrup, which drives insulin spikes and amplifies inflammatory signaling throughout the body, and industrial emulsifiers like carboxymethylcellulose and polysorbate 80. Research has established that these emulsifiers disrupt the mucus layer protecting your intestinal wall, allowing bacterial compounds to pass into the bloodstream, triggering a system-wide immune response that adds yet another layer to the inflammatory load your body is already carrying. The person who eats a salad every day believing they are being disciplined and health conscious but dresses it with a bottled commercial dressing is doing something that partially cancels the benefit of the salad itself. It is one of the most common contradictions I see in my practice, and almost no one is aware of it. Before I get to the third food, I want to ask you something directly. Has anyone in your family, a parent, a sibling, a close friend, been diagnosed with a chronic inflammatory condition or received results that worried them without a clear explanation? If that resonates with you, take a second and let me know in the comments below. I read everything that comes through here, and your situation matters to me. The third food, and this is the one that carries the most silent danger because of how trustworthy it appears, is margarine and any refrigerated vegetable spread marketed as a healthier alternative to butter. These products were introduced decades ago as a cardiovascular improvement over animal fats, and the recommendation stuck even as the science moved on dramatically. Here is the core problem. Margarine is made from the same industrial seed oils I just described, but the manufacturing process adds an additional step called partial hydrogenation, which converts some of the liquid oil into a solid or semi-solid form. That process generates trans fatty acids, and trans fats do something that almost no other dietary compound does quite as efficiently. They embed themselves into cell membranes and physically alter the membrane's permeability and function. A cell membrane built with trans fats does not communicate with surrounding cells correctly. Its surface receptors do not operate with normal sensitivity. Its ability to regulate what enters and exits the cell is compromised. Research has consistently confirmed that trans fat consumption promotes the accumulation of inflammatory compounds in arterial walls, in joint tissue, and critically, in the cellular environment of every organ system they reach. The consequence over years is an internal landscape that is structurally more hospitable to abnormal cell growth and far more resistant to the body's natural cleanup processes. And this is the part I want you to hold in your mind as we move into the second half of this video, because this is where the solution emerges. If you're finding this content genuinely useful, this is a good moment to subscribe to this channel and activate notifications. I publish new content every week, specifically designed to give you the kind of clinical understanding that most people never receive outside of a doctor's office, and I do not want you to miss what is coming next, now. The 3 foods I just described all converge on the same biological destination. They promote the accumulation of zombie cells. They suppress the body's natural ability to clear them, and they sustain the inflammatory environment that allows abnormal cellular behavior to take root and expand. The standard medical approach to this problem is either to wait for symptoms to become diagnosable and then intervene with pharmaceutical tools, or to provide general recommendations about diet and exercise that do not address the cellular mechanism directly. That gap is the problem, and it is exactly the gap that a very specific biological process can fill, one your body already knows how to run if given the right conditions to activate it. That process is called autophagy. The word comes from the Greek for self-eating, and that description is quite precise. When your body enters a state of cellular hunger, a specific metabolic state triggered by the right combination of inputs, it activates an internal recycling program of extraordinary precision. Cellular machinery begins identifying damaged, dysfunctional, and senescent cells. It dismantles them, it strips their components down to raw biological material, and it uses that material either as an energy source or as building blocks for new, healthy cellular structures. This is not a hypothetical process. This is a well-established biological mechanism, recognized with a Nobel Prize in Medicine, confirmed across decades of research, and increasingly understood as one of the most powerful forces the human body possesses for self-repair. When autophagy is running efficiently, zombie cells do not accumulate. The inflammatory signal drops. The tissue environment shifts from one that supports abnormal growth to one that actively suppresses it. The challenge is that modern dietary habits, and specifically the 3 foods we discussed, create a metabolic environment where autophagy is chronically suppressed. The constant presence of oxidized fats, nitrosamines, emulsifiers, and high fructose compounds keeps the body in a state of metabolic activity that never drops low enough to trigger the cellular hunger state. The cleanup cycle never fully engages. The accumulation continues. This is exactly what the cellular hunger protocol was designed to address. It works by using 4 specific morning activators, all found in an ordinary kitchen, to guide the body into the precise metabolic state required to initiate autophagy. These activators work not by adding a supplement or removing a food group in isolation, but by recreating the specific biological sequence the body needs to enter cellular hunger mode safely and consistently. The protocol does not require fasting to the point of discomfort. It does not require expensive equipment or clinical supervision. It works within the first 30 minutes of the morning, the metabolic window when the body is most primed to shift into the repair state, and then steps out of the way while the body does what it was always designed to do: hunt the zombie cells, dismantle them, and rebuild. Over a 30-day cycle, the protocol generates a cumulative effect. The inflammatory burden carried by senescent cells decreases. The internal chemical environment that sustains chronic inflammation loses its structural support. Tissue that had been receiving a constant distress signal begins to receive silence instead, and in that silence, the body's genuine repair work becomes possible. The patients who have worked through this protocol consistently report the same early signs of change: reduction in the morning stiffness that had become normal, energy that arrives earlier in the day and lasts longer, clarity that had been clouded by persistent low-grade inflammation, and in their clinical measurements, a measurable shift in inflammatory markers that their physicians could see in the results. Research has long established that targeted autophagy activation reduces the burden of senescent cells in aged tissue, lowers circulating inflammatory cytokines, and creates measurable shifts in cellular behavior toward healthier function. The science behind this is not new. What is new is the understanding of how to activate it practically, consistently, and safely using accessible nutritional tools rather than pharmaceutical intervention. This brings me to something I need to tell you honestly about access to the cellular hunger protocol. And I want to be clear that what I am about to say is not designed to pressure you. It is simply accurate. The protocol was developed with an accompanying level of clinical guidance that limits how many people can begin it at any given time. That is a structural constraint, not a marketing choice. The 4 morning activators require precise sequencing and individualized adjustment in the early stages, and the support infrastructure built into the program cannot be expanded without compromising the quality of that guidance. The number of available starting positions is not unlimited, and historically, each time this program has been made available, those positions fill within days. I have seen what happens when people find out about this protocol and decide to come back to it later. They return a few weeks down the road and discover that the enrollment window closed, that they have to wait for the next cycle, and in the meantime, nothing has changed inside their Cells. The zombie cells continue to accumulate. The inflammatory signal continues to run. Every day of delay is another day the mechanism is working against them rather than for them. The people who act on the information in front of them today are not making an impulsive decision. They are responding to a biological situation that is already in progress, with a tool that is specifically designed to address it before the accumulation reaches a point where the options become significantly more limited. If you are ready to begin, the way to access the Cellular Hunger Protocol is through the pinned comment at the top of the comment section of this video. That is the only place the link will be available. Go there now, before this session closes, and follow the instructions you find there. Your cells are waiting for a different signal. You now have the information to give it to them.